And so now we have come down to the last department we're going to do, which is the light department. So we put down the base, and we're going to set our department to light. And what we're going to do in light is that we're going to add light, of course. We are going to adjust the variants for the boat. We are going to add material to the water and the rain. We can start by making this template by default of 3. And I'll just make some space up here. And so I'm going to add a context node up here. And the only shots that are going to come out are the ones that are in the network. So in this one, we're just going to select all of them so we get a nice little preview here for planning what we're about to do. And what we're going to do is for the last 3 shots, we are going to have a rising sun happening. And for the 0-20 shot and 0-30, we're going to have, or maybe just the 20, we're going to have the butterfly be a little bit more drenched in rain and wet. So it would make sense that you have this, and so now all shots are able to be rendered, even though we're not really doing anything here except for just adding them. And so you might be thinking like, okay, well, I'll just break out these 3 shots here now then. You know, something like that. All right, and then you know, you would do your changes per shot and stuff like that. But there is a problem here. So at first glance, we sort of switch between shots here, and the local preview is working great. But then, you know, we go down here and we'll try to see if we can switch to the other previews. And what will happen is that when we try to switch here, it's not gonna switch. It's only gonna switch for the last 3 shots. And the reason for this is that because these context nodes act as a filter, this context switch is only switching between these 3 shots. And so the other shots are not accessible. Now, so you can sort of fix this if you make the first input empty and do something like that. And now you should be able to switch as normal. All right, so let's do some work. So first of all, we are going to add a dome light. And so this is where we're going to place our reflection map. Now we're going to add the texture here, and we are going to go to our job and transfer in, and we'll find this dome reflection. And normally these HDRI maps would be high dynamic range, so they would be HDRI or EXRs. In this case, we're only going to use this for reflections, and so we have no values above 1, and so we can use a JPEG for it and save a little bit of render time and stuff. All right, so this is the look we have right now, and maybe we'll boost this a little bit. We are also gonna want a sunlight for these 3 shots, and so we are going to add a physical sun. And so in this one, we're gonna turn off render light geometry, and we're gonna turn off the sky. And so we should be left with a sunlight here. And we are going to make it so that it's a sunrise. This altitude is, of course, a height. So this is supposed to be a sunrise. And we can rotate it here to how we like. It is creating a HDRI on the fly to create this this sun. And you could absolutely use just a regular sunlight, but I just want to show you some how to work around some issues. It's pretty nice with the physical sky because it changes color as you go and stuff like that. In contrary to the other nodes, you're not able to override it like you would assume. So what we can do instead is we just do 1 per shot. And that way we can sort of animate it as we go. So for this shot, we should always press this button here so you get the correct frame range. So for this first shot, we can then animate the sun sort of starting at 0 altitude here, and you know, by the end of the shot we have some sunlight going. And we could do the same thing for the other ones if we want. We'll just remove the animation here, dial in the light a little bit, and we might want to change the dome light here as well. So for this we can add a light mixer, and we can drag in our regular dome, and we'll just sort of copy these over to this shot. Maybe we also want to align this dome light to sort of be rotated similar to the scan. So I think this will take care of the light description. And we can see that the water here is all gray. So we are going to create a boat shader or a water shader. So it might take a little bit of time jumping between shots and stuff like that. If it does, you can sort of unload the rain here, for instance, to make it a little bit faster. You do always pay a price when loading simulations and stuff like that, but it's fairly quick. It should be you know, a second or two. But things like particles will take a lot of time. All right. So let's add a material here, a material library. And for this material, we are going to dive in, and we're going to create a karma material. And this is going to be called water. And we are going to do some basic settings, maybe like that, and we'll have almost full transmission, and we'll have this depth thing going on, maybe a little bit brownish water, and we'll set that this color will be reached after maybe a depth of 1. We can also add some extra ripples to it, but let's apply it and see. So in this case, we don't really need an assigned material because this only has one material in it. So we can assign this here because we're not concerned with where it's gonna be during export. So we're gonna apply this to the water, and we can also apply it to the rain folder. So when we add things to the rain, we'll get that shader too. All right, so let's see what we have. All right, so we have some nice reflection. Maybe the water is a little bit too dark. All right, so I think we are setting our material here, maybe just a little bit brownish, like so. And yeah, we can go darker with the color if we want to. But I think, yeah, this is good. And maybe we'll do the murkiness to set to 3, something like that. So let's do a unified noise 3D, and we are going to connect it to the normal, and we need this a little bit. Ideally, you would also use this normal map node to something really small, 0.05 perhaps. And let's increase the frequency of this to something like that. Maybe we'll even go slightly higher, and we'll do All right, so now we have a bit of that. Maybe want this super subtle. All right, and so if we go over to this shot here, look to our render cam, and so it's quite annoying seeing this light, so we can turn it off here. So I think this is pretty good. All right, next up, let's assume that for 2 of the shots, we want the butterfly to be extra wet. So what we can do is we can create a context node. And for this, we are going to select those 2 shots. So, and we can turn off this local preview if we want or not. So, so inside this, we are going to add edit material, like so, and we are going to find the butterfly shader, butterfly materials, and let's do the wings. And we unload that, and once it's loaded, we can jump into it. And so now we have a few settings to play with, and I think for this purpose, you know, maybe we'll add some extra coat here. So we'll see if we can add some extra coat. All right, so we can actually add things to the network here. So if we want to boost the saturation here, we can. We have the image here, so we can add a color correct, and we want to add the material X1, and so we'll do that. And now we can sort of boost the saturation here. 10 is obviously a little bit much. Maybe we'll sort of boost it by 3. Maybe we'll make it a little bit more. All right, so now that override should be available for those 2 shots only. So if we sort of look at these 2 shots, we have that sort of override. Whereas, and if we want to add it for this shot as well, we just need to add this here. And now that is applied to this shot as well. Right. So now we have set up the light. We have added a material for our water, and we've set up physical sky and animated it, and set some light per shot, and overridden a shader for a few shots as well. And you can keep doing this and sort of add these contexts and sort of affect things after each other. All right, so now that we have this and we're super happy, we want to set up a render. And so maybe this one is our preview render. So we just want it to show us everything. And maybe we're happy with this at like a half resolution and sort of samples set to a quarter. You know, then maybe you would have another render, and this render is for the butterfly only. Right, and so in this one we would want to hide everything, or rather we want to sort of phantom everything that is there. So we're going to phantom the boats here, and the environment, and the rain and the water. And we'll select the butterfly here now, and which is only the butterfly. All right, and for the butterfly, you know, we want the resolution to be full and samples to be full. And so you can see up here that these are changing when I preview render even here. And so these 2 outputs are applied to all shots. So if I go to another shot, the same thing will apply. And so you can do this for more things. You know, let's say that we want to add one maybe for the boats as well. Or BG is commonly used, and in this one we just want to phantom the butterfly. And we can refresh this list here, and we should have that BG come up, and so we can switch to that. And of course you can do the same thing with mats. You can also hide things completely, which will be the same as deactivating them or pruning them. And maybe you have it so that you want to create a breakdown render as well. And so we'll grab another one of these, and for this one we'll just call it breakdown. And I think we'll unhide that. we are going to create a material library. And jump inside, and we're gonna add a karma material. And we're just gonna make this sort of gray. Now, so there's a few things we can do. We can, in this one, we can autofill it here and assign it. And we can just do that, I guess. And we autofill this. Make sure that our previous switcher is on breakdown. You will see that it doesn't add the gray material. Clear this out and add the default here, which is an asterisk. So the better way to do it is with assigned materials like we did before. And so in boats and the butterfly here and the environment and the rain and the water. And we choose our material and we have gray here. And so we're still not getting any gray material, right? But with the assigned material, we have the power to change that. And so here we have the strength. And here we can basically say that this is supposed to override. It's supposed to be stronger than any other material. So if you check that, we do get the material here. All right, so if you switch around here, you have the background render, you have the breakdown, you have the butterfly, and you have the preview render with everything. So if we're happy with this, we are basically set to render the project. First of all, we want to set up some collections, and typically it sort of makes sense to sort of match these output names a little bit. So maybe here are my previews, and in the selection here I can go, it's for all shots, but it's for the preview output. And make another one here, and this one is breakdowns, and it's gonna be that. And once you set these up, they will pretty much never change. So it's a sort of a one-time thing usually. And for the background and the butterfly, we can just write BG and FG, for instance. And we can just, in outputs here, we can select that both those are supposed to come out. And so when you want to render these things now, you're able to, if you go to the previews, you get to see those, and you can render what you want. And the idea of rendering sort of background and the butterfly separately is that we can sort of blend out the water. And I think, in the butterfly layer, you would probably want the boats in there and stuff like that. But you could do a separate one for the boats and a separate one for the rain and sort of stuff like that. The idea is to give power to the compositing stage, where you're basically gonna blend this water with the plate water. So that's how you set up all the renders pretty much. And you can just jump around between shots like this. And usually it will be pretty fast, but you do sort of pay a price a little bit if you have heavy geometry. So you have to be patient. All right, so another thing we can do when we're working with a lot of shots and we want to get some sort of preview, that's where render clones comes in. And so in here you have the, if you go to Solaris, you will find the clone control panel, and which I have right here. And you can go to one of your selections, maybe the previews here, and we'll just add all of these as render clones. And by default, they will be not connected, because essentially it could be a lot of shots. But all you need to do is right-click them and do connect, and it will take a moment to start. And your miles will vary with this a little bit. A live render of all shots at once, sort of a small IPR for each one. And they're all live as well. So you can see the name of the shot here, and you can sort of change the frame per shot if you like. And you can also set the resolution. So if you double click on this thing, you can set the resolution. By default, it's set to 10%. And this is 10% of whatever you set in your output. And if you want to see it bigger, you can sort of double click these and click the fit. So 10% doesn't look all that great here. But if you want to boost this one, for instance, you can go to this and we can set that this should be 2/3 instead. And as this is rendering here live, we can open it and we see it more. And you can also continue working with your shots. If I, for instance, add a light mixer here on one of the shots, on I'll drag this dome in here and we'll change the color to something crazy, maybe red here. We'll see that update in real time. And sometimes everything doesn't always update in real time with render clones. If you are failing to see it, evaluate, you can always jump around with your view flag, or you just switch frames or something like that to trigger the cook. And you can also delete them very easily by doing so. And that's a very useful tool to have. And if we go back to our IPR here, and I'm just going to delete this dome light we did. And so here we can see that our particles, our raindrops, are being present as well from the raindrops. This should happen automatically because the way points render. If you do want more control of that, we can set that up here as well. So we'll just do an instancer. And in this one, we are going to select our rain here. And target point, first input points. And we are going to select the rain points here. And for the input, we are going to make a little sphere. Like so, and maybe we'll make this very small. 0.034. That's probably a little bit big. And so in the instance, we need to also uncheck scale here and rotation. And so now we can see our raindrops a little bit more clearly here. And so I'll leave them a little bit bigger so we can see them. But because when we set up the materials here, we set it to be for the water and rain. So this should inherit that. And indeed it does. And what you can do is you can also use these particles as sort of hit points with the water surface and create sort of ripples in the texture and stuff like that, especially using cops. But I'm gonna leave that for another time. All right, so so in some of these shots, you know, we are blending the water with the plate water and stuff like that. And in other shots, we are not using the CG environment at all. So for instance, in this sort of struggle shot, this scan is not super perfect, and so we can sort of blend it into the plate in compositing. But you also typically want to add, because we're rendering the background separately, what we can do is that we go to our base node and we go to the AVs. We can sort of make sure that we have the shadow AV here. And so if we look in the AV, which is this little thing here, we should see the shadow pass. And so when we render this with only the background, in compositing, we can essentially grab this shadow and use it for the plate. All right, so I think we're gonna sort of stop there with how this project was made. And a lot of work goes into comp to sort of make them function together. And so I hope you learned a lot on how to work with these in different ways, in different configurations and stuff like that. I imagine it's a little bit confusing as well. In the next video, we're going to talk about some tips and tricks. And so let's jump into that.